The grand hall was bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. Crystal walls rose up so high they seemed to touch the stars themselves. Light bounced off every surface, making the whole place glow with an otherworldly beauty. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in curved rows, all watching the center platform where a single figure stood. Princess Silara was beautiful in the way that dangerous things often are. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, and her violet eyes held nothing but cold amusement as she looked down at the human delegation. She moved with grace as she spoke, her voice carrying easily through the massive chamber. "So these are the humans," she said, and her tone made it clear what she thought of them. The newest species to beg for a place among the Council of Stars. How disappointing. Jake sat very still in his seat. He wore his dress uniform, every button polished, every crease perfect. Beside him, Katie shifted slightly, her hand moving to rest on the armrest between them. It was a small gesture of support, barely noticeable, but Jake appreciated it. "I have studied your species extensively," Silara continued, walking in a slow circle on her platform. "Your bodies are so fragile. A simple fall can break your bones. You live barely 100 years, which is nothing compared to most species here. You need food every few hours just to stay alive. You are weak in every measurable way." The other aliens in the chamber watched with varying expressions. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed amused. The Krellian ambassador, whose species had sponsored humanity's application to the council, made a soft sound that might have been distress. "My empire has conquered 17 star systems," Silara went on. "Our warriors are bred from birth to be perfect fighters. They live 500 years. They can survive in the vacuum of space without protection. They have strength that would turn your fragile bones to dust." She stopped walking and looked directly at Jake. "Tell me, human, why should we accept your species as equals? What can you possibly offer us?" The silence in the chamber was complete. Every eye turned to the human delegation. Jake could feel the weight of that attention like a physical thing pressing down on him. This was the moment. Everything humanity had worked for, all the years of trying to make contact with alien species, all the hope of joining the galactic community, came down to this single moment. Jake stood up slowly. At 6 feet tall, he was average for a human, but tiny compared to most of the aliens around him. He met Princess Silara's eyes without looking away. "Your Highness is correct," he said, his voice steady. "We are fragile. We do die easily. We live short lives compared to most species here." He took a step forward. "But you are missing something important in your assessment of us." Silara raised one elegant eyebrow. "Oh, and what might that be?" "You have never seen a human fight." Whispers rippled through the chamber. Silara laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a breeze. "I have studied your military history, Captain Morrison. Your species has been at war with itself for thousands of years. You fight over everything. Resources, beliefs, imaginary lines on maps. You are chaos given form." "That is exactly my point," Jake replied. "We have spent 10,000 years learning how to fight. Not just other humans, but our entire planet. Earth does not breed warriors, Your Highness. Earth creates survivors. Every human you see here is descended from ancestors who survived ice ages, diseases, predators, and each other. We did not just survive, we thrived." "Pretty words," Silara said dismissively. "But words do not win battles." "Then perhaps we should have a real test," Jake said. "Your empire values combat skill. Let me propose a challenge. Single combat. Your best warrior against one of ours. No weapons, no technological enhancements. Just skill and determination." The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens spoke in a dozen different languages, their translators working overtime to keep up with the chaos. The Krellian ambassador stood up, his tentacles waving in alarm. "Captain Morrison, this is highly unusual," the Krellian said. "The council does not typically I accept," Silara interrupted. Her eyes gleamed with something that looked like predatory interest. "But let us make this interesting. If your warrior loses, humanity withdraws its petition to join the council. Furthermore, your species will become a protectorate of the Valtherian Empire. You will serve us." Katie grabbed Jake's arm hard enough to hurt. "Captain, you cannot—" "And if our warrior wins?" Jake asked, not looking at Katie. Silara tilted her head, considering. "If your warrior somehow manages to defeat my champion, which is impossible, humanity will be granted full membership in the Council of Stars. My empire will sponsor you personally. Additionally, I will serve as an ambassador to your world for 1 full year. Agreed, Jake said immediately. The princess smiled wider. Excellent. The combat will take place in 3 days at the Grand Arena on Valtros Prime. Choose your champion carefully, Captain Morrison. I will be sending Commander Zarek. He is the undefeated champion of my Imperial Guard. He has killed warriors from 6 different species in honorable combat. He has never lost a fight. As the council adjourned, the chamber slowly emptied. Katie pulled Jake into a side corridor, her face pale with worry. Please tell me you have a plan, she said quietly. Zarek is 7 feet tall and has 4 arms. Everyone in the galaxy knows his reputation. He is a legend. Jake looked at her steadily. I have a plan. What plan? I am going to fight him myself. Katie stared at him like he had lost his mind. Jake, that is suicide. You cannot possibly beat him. Nobody can beat him. That is why he is the champion. Maybe, Jake admitted. But I meant what I said in there. She has never seen a human fight. None of them have. They think they know us because they studied our history and our biology. But knowing about something is not the same as experiencing it. It is time we showed the galaxy what humans are really capable of. And if you lose, if you die, then at least we went down fighting, Jake said. At least we did not just give up and accept being treated as lesser beings. That counts for something. Katie was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. The crew of the Horizon is behind you. Whatever you need, we will provide it. I need you to believe I can win, Jake said, because I am going to need all the belief I can get. They walked back to their quarters in silence, both knowing that the next 3 days would determine the future of humanity's place among the stars. The human quarters on the orbital station were small and plain compared to the luxury given to other species. Jake stood alone in the training room, a bare space with gray walls and artificial gravity set to Earth normal. His body ached from the exercises he had been doing for the past 6 hours. Sweat dripped down his face, but he did not stop moving. Katie entered carrying a tablet, her expression worried. I found everything I could about Zarek and how Valtharians fight, she said. Jake, this is worse than we thought. Valtharians have 2 hearts. Even if you manage to hurt him badly, he can keep fighting. Their bones are reinforced with metal compounds found naturally in their bodies. Hitting him will be like hitting a steel wall. Then I will not hit his bones, Jake said, continuing to practice his movements. You are not taking this seriously. Jake stopped and turned to face her. Katie, I'm taking this more seriously than anything in my entire life. But if I spend all my time thinking about why I cannot win, I will lose before I even step into the arena. The door opened, and a muscular man with gray hair walked in. Danny Wright had been a Marine Corps instructor before retiring and joining the diplomatic mission. He carried a heavy bag over his shoulder and dropped it on the floor with a loud thud. Heard you volunteered to get yourself killed, Danny said in his rough voice. Figured you might want actual training instead of just dancing around. Jake smiled despite the situation. Good to see you too, Danny. I spent 20 years teaching people how to fight opponents who are bigger and stronger than them, Danny said. You have 3 days. Let us not waste time. For the next 3 days, Jake lived in the training room. He ate when Danny told him to eat. He slept when Danny allowed him to sleep. The rest of the time was nothing but training. Danny pushed him through drill after drill, teaching him how to use an opponent's size against them, how to target vulnerable spots, how to survive when outmatched. Valtharians have 4 arms, which seems like an advantage, Danny explained during one session, but coordinating 4 arms perfectly takes incredible concentration. If you can disrupt his rhythm, make him think instead of react, you will create openings. Lisa Park, the medical officer, checked on Jake constantly. Your stress levels are dangerously high, she warned. You need rest. I will rest when this is over, Jake muttered. Jake, Lisa said seriously. I know why you are doing this, we all do. But dying for a cause does not make you a leader. He met her eyes. I am not planning to die. I am planning to win. On the second day, Ambassador Chen Wei visited the training room. The elderly diplomat watched Jake work for several minutes before speaking. I could order you to choose someone else to fight, Chen Wei said quietly. Jake wiped sweat from his face. You could, but you will not. How do you know? Because you understand what is really at stake here. This is not about who is the better fighter. Princess Solara challenged humanity's right to be treated as equals. If I refuse now, if we send someone else, we have already accepted her view that we are inferior. Chen Wei nodded slowly. When I was young, I thought diplomacy was about finding peaceful solutions. I still believe that. But I have learned that sometimes the most important message does not come from words. What message am I sending? That humanity does not bow, that we face challenges directly, even when the odds are impossible, that we would rather die standing than live kneeling. The ambassador's eyes grew distant. My grandfather told me stories about the war, about people who fought impossible odds. They fought not because they thought they would win, but because fighting itself was the victory. It meant they had not given up their humanity. I plan to do more than just fight, Jake said firmly. I plan to win, Chenwei smiled. Then you better keep training, Captain. On the morning of the third day, Jake stood at the observation window, looking down at the city of Valtros Prime below. The arena, a massive domed building at the city's center, gleamed in the light of twin stars. Katie joined him at the window. Are you scared? She asked softly. Terrified, he admitted. But fear is good. It means I am taking this seriously. It means I'm not being foolish. Everyone on the horizon wants you to know they support you. All of us, Jake turned to her. If something happens to me, you will be fine. But if I am not, tell the story correctly. Not that I was some kind of hero, but that I was just a person who stood up when it mattered. That is what humans do. We are not the strongest or the fastest, but when we are challenged, we rise to meet it. Katie's eyes were wet with tears she refused to let fall. Win or lose, you have already proven that. An hour later, Jake stood in the arena's preparation room. He wore simple combat clothes, flexible pants, and a sleeveless shirt made from earth materials. No armor, no technological help as they had agreed. Danny checked Jake's condition one last time. Remember everything we practiced. Speed and precision over power. He will expect you to try to match his strength. Do not. Be like water flowing around obstacles, not like stone trying to break through them. Be like water, Jake repeated. I understand. The door opened and an attendant signaled for him to move forward. Jake took a deep breath, rolled his shoulders to loosen them, and walked toward the arena entrance. The sound of the crowd hit him like a physical force. Thousands of aliens from dozens of species filled the arena, all there to watch the spectacle. In a special box above, Princess Silara sat surrounded by her court, her expression showing amused anticipation. Across the arena floor, a huge figure emerged from the opposite entrance. Commander Jarak stood nearly 7 feet tall, his 4 muscular arms flexing as he walked forward. His skin was deep blue, almost black, and his eyes glowed with an inner light. Scars covered his chest and shoulders, each one representing a victory in combat. A floating drone above them spoke in multiple languages through translators. The challenge has been accepted. Human Captain Jake Morrison faces Commander Jarek of the Valtherian Imperial Guard. Combat will continue until one fighter surrenders, is knocked unconscious, or dies. No mercy will be given. Let the challenge begin. The arena floor was smooth stone, about 50 meters across, surrounded by shimmering energy barriers. Jake and Jarek stood at opposite ends, studying each other. The crowd's noise faded to expectant silence. Jarek spoke first, his voice deep and resonant. You are brave, human. That deserves respect. But bravery without strength is just foolishness. I will make your death quick to honor your courage. Jake did not respond with words. He simply shifted into a ready stance, weight balanced evenly, hands raised but relaxed. He watched Jarek's center of mass, not his eyes or hands. Danny's voice echoed in his memory about watching the core because everything else is misdirection. A pure tone sounded through the arena, signaling the start of combat. The fight for humanity's future had begun. Jarek moved with shocking speed for someone so large. He closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. All 4 arms came at Jake in a coordinated attack, too high and too low, designed to make defense impossible. Jake did not try to defend. He dropped and rolled forward, sliding under the attacks and coming up inside Jarek's reach. He drove his elbow into the Valtherian's ribcage with every bit of force he could generate, targeting the floating ribs where organs would be less protected. The impact jarred Jake's entire arm. It felt like hitting a concrete wall wrapped in leather, but he heard something, a grunt, a slight exhale from Jarek that suggested the blow had landed, even if it had not done much damage. Jarek's lower left arm swept backward, catching Jake in the shoulder and sending him tumbling across the arena floor. The crowd roared with excitement. Jake rolled with the momentum and came up into a crouch, his shoulder screaming with pain. Nothing was broken, but he would have a massive bruise. You are faster than I expected, Jarek said, circling slowly. But you see the problem, yes? You cannot hurt me, but I only need to touch you to break you. Jake circled in the opposite direction, keeping his eyes on Jarek's center. His shoulder throbbed, but he pushed the pain aside. He had fought through worse during training. Jarek charged again, but this time Jake was ready for the pattern. The Valtherian led with his upper arms, expecting Jake to dodge low again. Instead, Jake pivoted and sprinted toward the arena wall, using it to launch himself upward and backward. His boot connected with the side of Jarek's head. The kick lacked the power to do serious damage, but it accomplished something more important. It made the warrior angry. Jarek roared and spun with terrifying speed. His forearms became a whirlwind of strikes. Jake gave ground, evading rather than blocking, letting the momentum of Jarek's attacks carry him past. Each swing that missed cost Jarek energy and threw him slightly off balance, but Jake could not keep evading forever. He was already breathing hard while Jarek seemed barely winded. That second heart gave him stamina like an engine designed for long combat. A fist caught Jake in the ribs. He felt something crack. Pain exploded through his torso and he stumbled. Jarek pressed the advantage, his forearms hammering down like pistons. Jake covered his head, his forearms absorbing impacts that sent shock waves through his bones. He was going to lose. The rational part of his brain accepted this fact. Jarek was too strong, too durable, too experienced. Every blow Jake landed was absorbed with minimal effect, while every strike from Zarak compounded Jake's injuries. Then he heard it. Katie's voice, cutting through the roar of the crowd, amplified somehow. "Jake, remember Danny's lesson." Chapter 7. Chapter 7. Danny's Training Manual. The section on psychological warfare. Jake dropped his guard and stood upright, facing Jarek directly. He smiled, blood on his teeth. "Is that all you have got?" he said clearly. "I have been hit harder by my grandmother." The crowd went silent. Even Jarek paused, his forearms frozen mid-strike. Confusion flickered across his features. "You humans are insane," Jarek said. "You're just figuring that out now?" Jake laughed, then spat blood onto the arena floor. "Your princess called us fragile." She was right. We are fragile. We break easily. We die from things that would not even slow you down. He took a step forward. "But do you want to know our secret? We are used to it. We have been dying since we crawled out of the oceans. We are so used to pain and death that we turned it into entertainment. We climb mountains for fun. We jump out of aircraft for recreation. We invented hundreds of ways to fight each other and called them sports." Jarak's expression shifted from confusion to something else. Uncertainty. "You have been in, what, 100 fights?" Jake continued, moving forward despite his injuries. "I come from a species that has been in 1,000,000 fights. Every day, every generation, fighting each other, fighting nature, fighting to survive on a planet that tried to kill us 1,000 different ways. You were bred for combat. We were forged by it." "Words will not save you," Jarek growled, but there was something different in his voice now. "You are right," Jake agreed. "But they will distract you." He moved. Not forward, but sideways, forcing Jarek to pivot. The Valtherian's upper right arm came around in a sweeping blow. Jake ducked under it and drove his fist, not at Jarek's body, but at his upper left elbow joint. Every fighter knew about vulnerable spots. Eyes, throat, joints. Aliens were no different. They just had different joints. Jarek roared in pain as Jake's strike hyperextended the elbow. The upper left arm hung loose, not broken but damaged. 3 arms now instead of 4. Jake did not stop. He understood now what he had to do. He could not win by trading blows or outlasting his opponent. He had to take apart Jarek piece by piece, removing advantages until only the fight remained. For the next 5 minutes, Jake fought the most brutal battle of his life. He absorbed punishment that would hospitalize most humans, but each time he was struck, he delivered a counter targeting Jarek's joints, his eyes, his throat. He used every dirty trick Danny had taught him, every principle of fighting larger opponents. The crowd's roar became a continuous thunder. This was not the quick execution they had expected. This was war in miniature, 2 warriors pushing themselves beyond all limits. Jake's vision blurred. He was pretty sure he had a concussion. His ribs were definitely broken. His left hand was useless, fingers bent at wrong angles. But Jarek was not much better. 2 of his arms hung damaged. His right eye was swollen shut. And he was breathing hard through his mouth because Jake had broken his nose. They stood facing each other. both swaying, both knowing the fight was nearing its end. "You fight with honor," Jarek said, his voice hoarse. "But honor is not enough." "Good thing I'm not relying on honor then," Jake replied. Jarek charged one last time, his two functional arms reaching out to crush Jake in a bear hug that would end the fight. Jake waited until the last possible second, then dropped into a baseball slide, passing between Jarek's legs as he slid past. Jake drove his right elbow upward into the back of Jarek's knee. The joint buckled. Jarek toppled forward with a crash that shook the arena floor. Jake scrambled onto the Valtherian's back, wrapping his good arm around Jarek's throat in a chokehold that Danny had drilled into him 1,000 times. "Yield," Jake rasped into Jarek's ear. "There is no shame in it. You fought with honor, but this ends now." Jarek struggled, trying to reach back with his damaged arms, but Jake held on with the desperation of a drowning man clinging to life. He squeezed, cutting off blood flow to Jarek's brain. Seconds felt like hours. Jake's entire world narrowed to maintaining pressure, keeping the hold despite Jarek's thrashing. His broken ribs screamed. His damaged hand throbbed. His vision darkened at the edges. Then Jarek tapped the ground 3 times with his lower right hand, the universal signal of submission. Jake released the hold immediately and rolled away, lying on his back, staring up at the arena's ceiling. He could hear something, a strange sound that resolved into the crowd chanting a single word in dozens of different languages. "Human. Human, human." Jake was only barely aware of the medical team rushing onto the arena floor. Hands lifted him onto a stretcher, and Lisa's face appeared above him, her expression torn between professional concern and overwhelming relief. "Do not you dare die now," she said, pressing instruments against his chest. "Your vitals are a mess, but you are stable. Just stay with me. Did we win?" Jake mumbled. "You magnificent fool," Lisa laughed through tears. "Yes, you won." The next several hours passed in a blur. Valtherian medicine was far beyond anything Earth possessed, and the arena had state-of-the-art facilities. Jake's broken bones were mended with cellular reconstruction, his internal injuries repaired, and his concussion treated with neural stabilizers. When he finally woke fully, he found himself in a private medical suite overlooking the city. Katie sat in a chair beside his bed, her head down, asleep. Danny stood by the window, and Chen Wei was reviewing something on a tablet. "Welcome back," Danny said quietly. "You gave us quite a scare there." Jake tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Every muscle in his body ached. "How long was I out?" "About 10 hours, Chen Wei said, setting down his tablet. "The doctors wanted to keep you unconscious longer, but you have visitors." "Visitors?" The door opened, and Princess Celera entered, followed by 2 of her attendants. She looked different somehow. The mocking superiority was gone, replaced by something Jake could not quite identify. Katie jerked awake at the sound, immediately moving to stand between Jake and the princess protectively. "It is okay," Jake said, though he appreciated the gesture. "Your Highness." Celera studied him for a long moment. "When I proposed the challenge, I expected one of 2 outcomes. Either your warrior would fall quickly, proving my assessment of your species correct, or you would refuse, admitting your inferiority." "I did not anticipate this." "Disappointed?" Jake asked. "On the contrary, I am intrigued." She moved closer, her attendants remaining by the door. "I have watched the recording of your battle 7 times. Do you know what I observed?" "That I got beat up a lot?" A slight smile crossed her features. "I observed something my empire has forgotten. Commander Jarek is one of our finest warriors. Enhanced from birth, trained in every combat form our civilization has developed over thousands of years. He should have destroyed you in moments. Instead, you fought him to submission using nothing but determination and tactics that we would consider crude." "Crude?" "You targeted joints. You used psychological warfare. You employed what our military strategists would call dishonorable techniques." She paused. "And yet, watching you fight, I saw nothing dishonorable. I saw a warrior using every tool available to overcome a superior opponent. It made me realize that my people have become soft. We have so much power, so much enhancement, that we have forgotten what it means to truly fight." Danny made a sound from his position by the window, spoken like someone who has never had to fight for their life. Celera turned to him and Jake tensed, expecting anger. Instead, the princess nodded. "You are correct. I have never faced death. My warriors train for sport and ceremony. When we conquer other systems, We do so with overwhelming technological superiority. We do not struggle. We do not adapt. We simply overwhelm. She returned her attention to Jake. Your species is young. Your technology is primitive. By every metric my people use to measure strength, you should be beneath our notice. But you possess something we have lost, the memory of survival, the understanding that strength without adversity breeds weakness. Is there a point to this? Katie asked, her tone protective. Because Jake needs to rest. The point, Solaris said, is that I misjudged humanity. And more importantly, I misjudged what makes a warrior. Commander Jarek has asked to meet with you, Captain Morrison. He wishes to understand how you defeated him. I would be happy to talk with him, Jake said. Once I can move without feeling like I have been hit by a vehicle. A vehicle? Solara looked confused. Human expression, Chen Wei explained. It means he is in considerable pain. Then I will leave you to recover. But know this, Captain Morrison. The Council of Stars will convene tomorrow to formally grant humanity membership with my Empire's full endorsement, as agreed. Additionally, I will honor my commitment to serve as an ambassador to your world. She paused at the door. I find myself curious to learn more about a species that can produce warriors like you despite being, as I so rudely put it, fragile. After she left, Katie let out a breath she had been holding. That went better than expected. She's trying to save face, Danny observed. That princess just got a very public lesson in underestimating opponents. Now she is spinning it as a learning experience. Let her spin, Chen Wei said. What matters is that humanity has secured our position in galactic politics. Captain Morrison, you have done more for our species in one day than decades of diplomatic negotiations achieved. Jake shook his head. I just did what needed to be done. Any soldier would have done the same. No, Chen Wei said firmly. Most would have tried to fight the way Jarek fought, with power and aggression. You fought smart. You understood that winning does not mean being stronger. It means using what you have more effectively than your opponent. Over the next few days, Jake recovered while the Council of Stars held its proceedings. The vote for humanity's membership was unanimous. The first unanimous vote in the Council's history, according to Chen Wei. The footage of Jake's fight had spread across the galactic networks, sparking countless debates about human potential and the nature of strength. Commander Jarek visited Jake on the third day of his recovery. The massive warrior moved carefully, still healing from his own injuries. He bowed formally when he entered the room. Captain Morrison, Jarek said, I come to pay my respects and to ask a question. Please sit. Jake gestured to the reinforced chair near his bed. What is your question? Jarek settled himself carefully. When you had me in that final hold when I was losing consciousness, you told me there was no shame in yielding. Why? You could have held on until I passed out, claiming a more definitive victory. Jake considered his answer. Because the fight was not about humiliating you. It was about proving that humans deserve a place at the table. Making you pass out would not have changed that. It would have just been unnecessary cruelty. But I would have continued fighting to unconsciousness. That is our way. Maybe that is the difference, Jake said. Humans fight to win, not to die gloriously. We have lost too many people over the centuries to romanticize death in combat. Victory means living to fight another day, not becoming a martyr. Jarek was silent for a long moment. You have given me much to consider, Captain Morrison. My people respect strength, but perhaps we have confused strength with invulnerability. You showed me that true strength is continuing to fight even when you can be broken. I am grateful for this lesson. The two warriors clasped hands in a gesture of mutual respect, and Jake knew that something important had changed, not just for humanity, but for everyone watching. 3 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the UNS Endeavour, humanity's first purpose-built diplomatic vessel. The ship was still new and everything had that fresh smell of recent construction. The crew moved with careful efficiency, still learning their stations and duties. Katie joined him at the viewport, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this. Long day? Thanks. Jake accepted the cup gratefully. They were in orbit around New Geneva, the newly established human embassy world designated by the Council of Stars. Below, construction crews from a dozen species worked alongside human engineers to build the facilities that would serve as humanity's gateway to galactic civilization. Hard to believe it has only been 3 months, Katie observed. Feels like a lifetime. In a way, it was. We are not the same people who walked into that council chamber. No, Katie agreed. We are people who proved we belong here. You proved it, Jake shook his head. I was just the person who stood in the arena. But what happened after that has been all of us. Every human who has interacted with the other species, who has shown that we are more than just warriors. We are scientists, artists, explorers, diplomats. We are people. The door to the observation deck opened and Princess Solara entered. True to her word, she had spent the last 3 months as humanity's most unusual ambassador, traveling to Earth and living among humans to better understand their culture. Captain Morrison, Lieutenant Brooks, she greeted them formally. Though her demeanor had softened considerably since their first meeting, I wanted to inform you that I will be returning to Valtros Prime tomorrow. My ambassadorial term is complete. Will you miss us? Katie asked with a slight smile. Solara's expression was thoughtful. I will miss your coffee. It is a remarkable beverage. But more seriously, yes, I will miss this. She gestured vaguely around them. Among my people, everything is certain. Our technology ensures comfort, our military ensures safety, our society ensures stability. But there is no spark. And Earth has spark? Jake asked. Earth has chaos, Solara corrected, but chaos is merely potential energy waiting to be directed. Your species argues constantly, disagrees about everything, and yet you continue to move forward. You build things that fail and rebuild them better. You embrace uncertainty as a challenge rather than a threat. She paused. I have recommended to my father, the Emperor, that the Valtherian Empire establish a cultural exchange program with humanity. We have much to learn from you. That is high praise coming from someone who called us livestock 3 months ago, Katie noted. I was wrong, Solara said simply. I measured strength by the wrong metrics. I looked at physical durability and technological advancement and assumed those were the only factors that mattered. But I have learned that true strength is adaptability, resilience, and the will to continue despite setbacks. These are qualities my people have forgotten in our centuries of dominance. You can help us remember. A message chime interrupted them. Chenwei's face appeared on the nearest screen. Captain Morrison, we are receiving a request from the Krellian Confederacy. They are asking if you would be willing to conduct training exercises with their military forces. They want to learn human combat tactics. Jake blinked in surprise. The Krellians? They have one of the most advanced militaries in the galaxy. And they watched you fight Jarek, Chenwei said with a knowing smile. They want to understand how a less advanced species can produce such effective warriors. I should mention, you are not the only one receiving such requests. I have had inquiries from 6 other species about various aspects of human culture and methodology. It seems your fight opened more than just political doors. After Chenwei signed off, Jake turned back to the viewport, processing this information. You are surprised? Solara observed. Honestly? Yes, I thought the fight would get us a seat at the table. I did not expect it to make other species want to learn from us. You demonstrated something they believed impossible, Solara explained. You proved that innovation and determination can overcome raw power. Every military strategist in the galaxy has studied your tactics. Every diplomat has analyzed how your species negotiated from a position of perceived weakness. You have become a case study in exceeding expectations. No pressure then, Katie muttered. Jake laughed. We have handled worse. Remember when we had to convince the Thorian ambassador that not all human music was aggressive? You showed him jazz and he thought we were trying to hypnotize him with mathematical patterns. Cultural exchange is complicated, Jake agreed. Then more seriously, but that is the real work, is it not? The fight got attention, but building actual relationships, mutual understanding, that is the hard part. And yet you humans seem well suited for it, Solara said. You are divided among yourselves, yes, but this means you are practiced at bridging differences. Every human nation, culture, and community represents a different perspective, and yet you have learned to cooperate when necessary. The galaxy is simply your internal diversity on a larger scale. Over the following weeks, Jake found himself traveling extensively as part of humanity's diplomatic corps. He participated in cultural exchanges, military training exercises, and academic symposiums. Everywhere he went, the story of his fight with Jarek had preceded him. But Jake made sure people understood the larger message. At a military academy on Krelios Prime, he addressed a class of young officers. I am not here to teach you how to fight like a human. I am here to teach you to think like one. We do not have the strongest bodies or the best technology, so we had to develop something else. Adaptability. We had to learn to assess every situation, identify our advantages, and exploit them. That is not a human trait. That is a survival trait. Any species can learn it. At a scientific conference on Meridian Station, he spoke about human innovation. We make a lot of mistakes. We try things that do not work, but we learn from failure and we are not afraid to try again. Some of our greatest discoveries came from experiments that failed in interesting ways. Do not be afraid to fail. Be afraid of never trying. And at a cultural symposium on Unity World, he addressed the prejudices that still existed. Yes, humans are dangerous. We are descendants of predators and we have violent tendencies, but we are also capable of incredible compassion, creativity, and cooperation. Every species has darkness in their history. What matters is what you do with that knowledge. Do you let it define you, or do you work to become something better? 6 months after the fight, Jake returned to Earth for the first time. He materialized in the transport hub in New York City, surrounded by the familiar chaos of humanity at its busiest. The noise, the crowds, the sheer density of human activity was overwhelming after months in the more ordered environments of alien worlds. His mother met him at the arrival gate. Helen Morrison was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She hugged him fiercely, then held him at arm's length, studying his face. "You look tired," she observed. "It has been a busy 6 months. I watched the fight. Give me 3 more gray hairs. What were you thinking?" "That someone needed to stand up." "Well, you stood up and then got knocked down repeatedly." But her eyes were proud even as she scolded him. "Come on. Your father is making dinner and your sister is bringing her new boyfriend for you to meet." Over dinner with his family, his father, a retired teacher, his sister Amy, a marine biologist, and her boyfriend Marcus, a musician, Jake found himself relaxing for the first time in months. They asked questions about space, about aliens, about the council, but mostly they just talked about normal things. Amy's research, Marcus's upcoming concert, their father's garden, their mother's book club. "It is nice," Jake said after dinner, sitting on the porch with his father, to be reminded that for most people the galaxy did not change. Life just goes on. "Oh, it changed," his father corrected gently. "But humanity has always been good at absorbing change and continuing forward. We have been doing it for thousands of years. A few new neighbors in the galaxy? We will adapt." Later, lying in his childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling with its glow-in-the-dark stars, Jake thought about his father's words. That was the real victory, was it not? Not the fight, but what came after. The relationships being built, the understanding being fostered, the slow work of transforming humanity from newcomers to members of the galactic community. A month later, Jake received orders assigning him to the newly formed Galactic Integration Office. His official title was Cultural Liaison, but really, he was an ambassador without portfolio, traveling wherever tensions arose between humans and other species, helping to bridge misunderstandings and build connections. It was not glamorous work. It did not involve dramatic fights or grand speeches. It was slow, patient effort, learning alien customs, explaining human perspectives, finding compromises that satisfied everyone. But it was important work. And as Jake boarded the transport that would take him to his next assignment, he reflected that this was what leadership really meant. Not the heroic moment, but the long commitment to doing what was necessary, day after day, even when no one was watching. Princess Silara had been wrong about humanity. They were not livestock or warriors or any single thing. They were people, complex and